All right, so in this video, we're going to go over section 2.3, and we're going to model linear functions. Okay, so if you download the notes that I attached on Google Classroom, you can follow along. Okay, so I'm probably not going to write the problem down. And if you're wondering, it's like, where is he getting these word problems? It's from the notes, okay, in Google Classroom on 2.3. All right, so before we even begin, right, I need to review some linear concepts with you. So if I have some kind of line over here, we'll say, here's my line, okay? And I'm going to call this guy right here x1. I'm going to call this guy right here x2. Let me extend this a little bit further here. And let's call this y1, y2. Okay, so that means that this coordinate right here is x1 comma y1. And this coordinate right here is x2 comma y2. Okay, so if I ask you what is the slope, well, most of you would probably say rise over run, right? But you could also think of it as vertical change in y. Okay, so this triangle just means change over horizontal change in y over change in x. So going back to my diagram over here, right? The change in y is the distance from here to here. Okay, that's your change in y. And the change in x is the horizontal distance from here to here. That's your change in x. And if I ask you, what is the change in y? Well, the change in y is just y2 minus y1. If I ask you, what's the change in x? It's x2 minus x1, right? Horizontal change. x2 minus x1. Okay, so this formula right here, right, looks very, very familiar. That's your slope formula. And there it is, in case you forgot it. Okay, so there's your slope. We'll call it slope. M is your slope. Okay, so not only do you need to remember how to calculate slope, right, you also have to know, what are the equations, okay? So, again, if I give you a line, this line right here crosses the y-axis at a specific point. And where it crosses the y-axis, we call it the y-intercept. We call it 0, comma b, okay? So the slope-intercept equation of this line right here is quite simply y is equal to mx plus b. Okay? And y is equal to mx plus b, we'll call it equation number 1. M is your slope, and b is your y-intercept. Okay, so a lot of times students hear that, they're like, what's y-intercept? It just means where the graph touches the y-axis. So you can see right here, right? This is where it crosses the y-axis, the x value is 0, the y-intercept is just b. All right, so you've seen this equation before, right? All right, the last equation I'm going to cover with you is called point slope. Okay, point slope comes from your slope equation. So if I may just quickly derive this formula here with you. Derive just means show you where the formula comes from. Here's my slope equation, right? If I put a 1 underneath here and I cross multiply, you're going to get y2 minus y1 is equal to m times x2 minus x1. And all I'm going to do is get rid of these subscripts over here. Get rid of that, and my point slope equation is just y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Okay, so point slope, very, very useful. Another way to write the equation of a line. M is your slope, and x1 comma y1, that's a point on the line. Okay, very, very convenient. You can go from point slope to slope intercept very easily just by distributing what your slope is and then adding y1 to the other side. All right, so that's just a quick recap on linear functions.